Hello everyone and welcome to CodingBulls. In this channel we will learn how to code mainly in C++ in a way that is easy to understand for everyone. In this first video we will see how to download Codeblocks and learn how to write our first code. First, let's open our favorite web browser, search for Codeblocks download, select the first result, and here you want to download the binary release. Select your option, and here you want to download the Codeblocks mgv setup.exe. This is because it comes with a compiler. Compilers translate your code to the computer so it understands what to do. If you select the normal setup.exe, you will just get the coding ID, but not with the compiler, so you won't be able to run your code. Select any of the two options. Then you can see that the download starts. When it is done, click on the exe file, and you will see the download starts. Click next. I agree. And here just leave everything as is. Next. Select your destination folder. For me it's the program files. And then click install. I've already installed Codeblocks. It will take a few minutes and you can start coding. So I will just click cancel. And when you are done, you will open up Codeblocks. And to get started, click on File, New, File. Select C source. Here we will choose C++. C is actually a separate programming language, but we will focus on C++. It's a more modern and easier to learn programming language. Click Next. Then you can give a name for your file. And the extension will be automatically applied as a .cpp file. You can press save and finish. And as you can see, you will get an empty page and you can start writing your code. I will first show you a simple Hello World program. A Hello World program is a code that outputs Hello World on the screen and mainly used to show beginners how to code. I will start writing the code. Once it's done, I will explain it to you. So don't worry if you don't get it first, it will make sense in a moment. When you are done with your code, not just with this code, with any code, you need to click Build and Run this icon. And it will compile your code. Here you can see the build messages. Once it's done compiling, it will start your code and it will execute. You can see that the build finished with no errors and no warnings. And we just put Hello World on the screen. Now for the code itself. This first line is an include. What it does is it includes a library that's already been written for you, so you can use codes that already exist and you don't need to rewrite everything. The main function, the function starts in this bracket and ends the other bracket. This is where the program starts executing when you start it. So the code runs from this first line, and this is the only line in this example, and it would go from up to down until it reaches the end of the main function. And in this line, the std is the standard library. So when you want to use the std, you need to type std and 2 dots to refer for that namespace. Then the cout prints out to the console the next thing that you write here. You need these symbols, and you can output anything here you want, and then the std end line outputs end of line at the end of your string. Now we can get rid of the std by typing using namespace std. What it does is allows you to use anything from the standard library, this namespace, without referring to it. So you can remove these stds and the compiler will still understand that it needs to take it from the standard library. So if you press speed and run, you can see that it still prints out hello world. An interesting thing is the end line can be replaced by a special character \n. This is actually one character, and what it does is put a new line to the output. So as you can see, it's the same hello world and then new line. The difference is the end line flashes the output, while the \n does not. Flashing the output takes some time for the program, but it only matters if you output lots of stuff. And sometimes when you write a code, you need your output to interact with another program. Therefore, you need to flash the output so the other program can actually read your output. Otherwise, you don't need it, and it's faster to use the \n. Now let's take a look at what else we can do with the program. There are variables, different types. The most basic type is an integer. It can be any integer number, even negative or positive, and you can assign values to it, calculate with them, and you can also output them on the cout function. So if we switch the cout to output A, we can also do that. We can also combine the outputs. So we can say, let's output anything that we want. Either anything we write out. Here is just a string that will get compiled. If we want to output a variable, we just simply put the variable name here. So in this example, it will output the value of A. Now, of course, if we want to assign a value, we can do it in a way that A equals, and we can write an expression here that the compiler can execute and understand. So for example, we can output 6 times 5 minus 2. Store the variable in A and then output it. Now it's interesting that we can also get rid of this int A and just put the int here. So you can actually assign a value to the variable at the same line you declare it. And it will still be 28. The difference between declaring a variable in a function and outside of any function is that it will be a local variable if you declare it inside the function, and it will be global if you declare it outside. Global variables can be referred from anywhere in the code. So later we will write other functions. We will actually see an example of it in this video, and it can refer to it. But if you have a local variable, then it can't be referred from outside that function. Also, another difference is that if you have a local variable and don't assign a value, it will be just a random value that is in that memory address. You can see that we didn't assign a value. Somehow it still decided to be 4,239,000. However, if you declare the variable outside, it will always be a default value, which is 0 for integers. As you can see, the value A is 0. Now, if you don't want to think about this too much, you can always assign a default value here outside the function too. and then it will be 5. You can also change the value of a variable anytime you want. So you can say that a should be 10 here. It's totally fine. And you can also use other variables to change a variable's value, even the same variable. So if you say, let's say a is equals a times 3. So if we look at the program how it works, first it has a assigned as a value 5. Program starts with the main function, sees that the a should be equal to 10 now, so it is 10. Now a should be equals a times 3. The way this expression works is actually the first thing that gets executed is the expression on the right. So we will get the value of a times 3 where we use the old value of a. So 10 times 3 is 30, and we then assign the value to a, that's 30. So therefore the variable a will be 30. Now let's see a simple example of a code that we want to complete. So we will want a number from the input, and we will output the double of that number. For this we will use console in, which is basically the pair of console out, and it can take a variable from the input and store its value. And then we will output the double of it, so we will write out double of a is. Now there is a bunch of ways to do this. First, the most simple one is we will output a times 2. So as you can see, nothing happens. The reason for this is we need to input a number for a. So let's say 12. Now still nothing happens. The reason for this is you need to press enter in order to flash your input for the console. Now it will read the value of a, which is 12, and the output that the double of a is 24. Now let's take a look of another way of doing this, which involves functions. Let's say that we want to make a function f that can calculate any numbers double, so fa. Now if we were to press speed and run, then our bit fails because the f was not declared in this code, meaning that the compiler doesn't know what f is. In order to declare it, we will, very important that we do it outside the main function, we will have a function in f that takes an integer as a parameter. The first, we declare the return value of f, so it will return as an integer. Then the name, this is just the name of it, and then the parameter or parameters. We can have more parameters. If we have more parameters, then we separate them with comma. We can also have a function with no parameters. And in this example, we have a single parameter of a. The most important statement of our function is the return. Basically what it does is anything after you write after it will be the return value of that function. So if we say a times 2, by the way, you don't need the brackets, it's just for you to easily see. So we get rid of this. Now it will double the value a and return to that. Now if we pay that done and take 12, then the double of a is 24. Now it's important to say that we have an a integer here and an a integer here as well. Normally this would be an error. If I were to write two variables of the same name, then if I try to build, it will tell me that it's a redefinition of it. So you can only have the same name for one thing at a time. However, because the scope of these two a's are different, this is a global variable because it's outside of any function, and this is a local variable because it's part of the f function. Therefore, it is possible. However, there is a really important detail that if you have a local variable and a global, then anything you refer to it in the function with a local variable, it will be referred to the local variable. So in this example, this a refers to the function's a value and not the global a value. This is important because we don't actually use this a value. So if I were to say that a should be 200, and we have another local variable here, b, which will be equal a. Now we do fb. The program will still work correctly and output the double. Even though the a is 200 here, but the b, this variable, is the correct a value, the 12. So here we will call the f function with the b value. We will action in the a here and refer to it as a, but this is not the same a as the a here, because this refers to the global variable and this refers to this local variable. So to go over it again, the way C++ works starts with the main function, executes the code in order. By the way, after each line, we have this semicolon symbol which separates the expressions. Technically, you could write two expressions in the same line. They are separated with the semicolon, not with the line break. So if as you can see, it's important that these are all clear. The reason is I haven't closed the window of my program. You need to always close it in order to build and run it again. So if I build and run, it's still correct. It's just visually not easy to see. So normally we put a line break between the expressions to see it better, but the compiler understands a new expression with a semicolon. This is the basic of most programming languages, but other programming languages doesn't use semicolons and instead relies on line breaks, for example Python. But with C++, you need to have the semicolons after each expression. So the way it works, it takes the first expression and goes in order. Now it reaches a more complex expression. So it knows that it needs to output something. What do I need to output? Oh, this string, the double of a is, and then what it is? Oh, fp. And now we will actually, at this point, start executing this f function. Okay, we have the f function. What is the value of it? Oh, we call this a, but we got this value from b here, which was 12 in our example. So what do I do with this? First I store the value a as 12, and then I start executing this function. And what do I do? Return, what do I return? A times 2, which is 24. And then we output 24, and as you can see, we reach the end of the main function, and whenever we reach the end of the main function, it will be the end of the code, and we finish executing. You can also return value from the main function. A return value of 0 usually means that the execution was successful and everything went fine. In C++, this main function will return 0 automatically when you reach the end of code. However, it's important that all other functions that you define doesn't have a default return value as the main function. So if you write any other functions, don't forget to return. Now to take a more complex look, let's say that inside the f function, we will call another function. Let's say a. We will call the variable here inside a2. This will return a times a. So, what will this code do if we have a value? Let's return right and input 3. As you can see, of course I didn't change the text. The value will be 27. And what it actually does is it takes the third power of a. Reason for this is, once again, we need to go through and see what the code does. Takes the input a, assigns the b as a, changes this a to 200, but it won't affect us because remember, these will be local variables and these will refer to these a's and not the global a. And then we will take the f function with the b value, which is the input value because we assigned the b value as a before we assigned the 200 to the a. And the f function will return a times and the g function with the a variable. So at this point, the execution will change to the g function, and we first need to see what the g function returns, a times a. So in this point, the compiler knows that this ga function is actually a times a. It's the same as we were to return a times a times a, which is the third power of a. Therefore, we have this program. Hopefully this gives you a good understanding on how code execution works in C++, and we will take a look at more complex examples in the next video. I hope to like this tutorial, and if you want to see more of these, make sure to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.